I just saw something because somebody shared it with me, and we have to talk about it. It's a fellow New Yorker, Tyreek, I think, and he wants to know why the New York accent is dying. Now, what he's perceiving is a real thing, and wherever you are, maybe you've noticed that the kids just don't talk the same. But before I get too far into this, let me just start with a spoiler. His accent isn't a classic New York accent. It's a new accent. It's not what I think of or what my parents' generation thinks of as a New York accent. Let's roll the clip.
Is it just me, or do younger New Yorkers not have New York accents? And it's crazy because, like, they parents will be born and raised in New York. They talk the same way I do, but the kids, they talk like iCarly. What is going on?
Leave me a comment with whether you already know why I say this accent isn't a classic New York accent. No hate on Tariq though, we're going to break this down. So today we're going to talk about what an accent even is, the reason they die out, and just for fun, some shibboleths of the classic New York accent. If you're new to the channel, I'm Dr. Taylor Jones. I've got a PhD in linguistics from the University of Pennsylvania, and on the channel I discuss everything related to language, linguistics, language learning, and culture. If you're into those topics, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. This is Language Jones. So one of the great ironies of learning a language is that a lot of us get into it because the process is supposed to make you free to travel, to connect, to think in new ways. But most of the time it ends up making you feel trapped by your schedule. Oh my God, when am I going to study? That's where Lingo comes in. They've basically built the language school for people who hate rigid systems. It's a completely online platform where you can book live, interactive classes 24/7. Seriously, middle of the night, middle of lunch, whenever you decide you're ready to conjugate something. You get to pick your own goals and lessons, and with their flex plan, learn at your pace. And because classes are small, 5 students max, you actually get to speak instead of just listening to someone else do it. All of the teachers are certified and native level, and you can choose from English, Business English, Spanish, French, German, and Italian. And if you want to test drive it first, there's a 7-day free trial. Last time I did a sprint, I did 14 lessons in 7 days. For anyone who values freedom, independence, and flexibility, basically, if you like language learning on your own terms, but actually learning it, and without having to develop the course yourself, Lingo is a perfect fit. Right now you can save up to 50% with my personal code, but only until December 9. So don't miss out. Black Friday deals are live now. Start your free trial, claim your discount, and learn freely with Lingoda. Okay, so let's listen to Tyreek for a second.
I've noticed this across different races, different nationalities, different ethnicities. Young New Yorkers just don't have New York accents anymore, and it makes me sad. I just feel like if you're from Brooklyn, you should sound like you from Brooklyn. I like being able to hear people talk and knowing automatically where they're from. All right, you from Brownsville, but you sound like you from Scottsdale, Arizona. That's not okay.
So here's the thing. First off, this is not going to come as a surprise to anybody, but in a city that's now 8 million people, there's a lot of accents. But I know the accent he's thinking of. It's not necessarily an Irish accent or a Puerto Rican accent or a Jewish accent. It's not Mandarin accented English from Flushing or a Bengali accent or the Arabic accent of the Yemeni ak at the bodega. We all know on some level that Cardi B's accent is a New York accent, but it's not the New York accent. And that's a real thing. It's an accent that working class and middle class New Yorkers all shared, and it was, and is, stigmatized outside of New York. That's when you say coffee, and they mock you by trying to repeat coffee. One of the best feelings of homecoming I have ever had was when I got back from a long trip, went to a cafe, and heard, "Can I just get a coffee?" "Sure thing, boss. Large or small?" And the classic New York accent crossed ethnic and religious lines, too. The Catholic Italian, the Ashkenazi Jew, the Black Baptist, after about the 1920s or so, had this accent. Men and women, boys and girls. And it is something that you hear a smaller and smaller proportion of the city speak with. But it was also never as fixed as people imagine and never as universal as people imagine. In my video about Bill LeBove's department store study, I talked about the whole premise of that study in the 1960s being the way New Yorkers pronounced or didn't pronounce R after a vowel, and that it was changing. And the city has always had massive population movements. Not only that, but born-and-bred New Yorkers think of things as just how things are correctly said, that not only do non-New Yorkers not say, they don't even hear them. So a classic New York accent has a few features. We'll start with the most obvious, that aw as in coffee or dog. That's an on glide on the attack for the low back vowel, the long open O. That vowel is always kept completely distinct from ah, the vowel in words like hot and cot. Linguists refer to mixing them up as the cot-quat merger. But a lot of the rest of the country has the merger, so Californians might say they felt awkward when they caught a ball while looking at a hawk in the sky. The other big obvious one is deletion of R after vowels, like in New York. But there's a lot else going on. First, the classic New York accent doesn't have a lot of vowel mergers that other accents do. So they distinguish between Mary, Mary, and marry. That's a and a respectively, as in play, bed, and cat. Oh, and that a, it tenses to yeah in closed syllables. That is, when it's followed by a consonant. When it precedes n, m, voiceless fricatives like fa, th, sa, sha, and voice stops like ba, da, and ga. I'm going to exaggerate it slightly, but a classic New York accent has sad, not sad.
And it makes me sad.
A classic New York accent distinguishes between I and e, including before n and m, so there's not the pin-pen merger. There's no feel-fill merger, no pull-pull merger. The vowels are all separate. Now, if you want to go really deep cut, not only is the I always a diphthong, that's basically two vowels said together, I, but in a classic New York accent, the first vowel is aw, like in coffee. I can't believe I'm still alive. And a really deep cut is switching oi and ers and goils, the opposite of boys, and burl the water. And deeper still, turning th sounds into t. If you're in Midtown, you could stop by Toity-Toit Street. Really deep cut, having a little y sound before the oo in words like new. I'm exaggerating. Deepest cut, affrication in the initial BR clusters in words like Brooklyn. Oh, and I can't forget the vowel before R in words like foreign and correlation and horrible. I once saw somebody from Ohio ask a New Yorker their favorite genre of film, and they said, horror. And the Ohioite said, what's horror? And they were like, horror. And then the Ohio transplant attempted to correct the New Yorker's pronunciation to horror. Horror. Oh, you mean horror?
The Verger has a limited release next week.
Oh, congratulations. I didn't know they had a release date for for that movie.
Now, what Tyreek means seems to be some vowel mergers like the cot-quat merger. iCarly's played by Miranda Cosgrove, who was born and raised in California, so she's probably got the cot-quat, pen. But I just want to point out that Tyreek is a born-and-bred New Yorker. He's from Brooklyn, and his accent is not what I just described as a New York accent. He's got a lot of features that are shared by Southern American English and a lot of Black English in the North, but by no means all Black speakers. So Biggie Smalls didn't have the pen merger, for instance. His New York accent is likely shaped by the history of the Great Migration. And that's the first part. There was a founder population already here when most New Yorkers' families got to New York, and in New York, speaking with the wrong accent is a sort of shibboleth. It's stigmatized. But there's also waves and waves of migration, and people don't hear the same way a trained linguist does. So it may be that you really hear the aw in coffee and dog, but you don't hear the difference between accent and accent at all. Linguists have been studying the New York accent since the 1960s, and that means if you interview somebody in 1960 who's 80 years old, we actually have recorded audio evidence of how New York accents have sounded and changed since the 1880s. And they do change. Accents everywhere change, all the time, even without in-migration. Kids approximate how their parents speak, but they also approximate how their peers speak, and particularly the kids who are just a little older and cooler, especially girls. So even without any external forces, say changes in how post-vocalic R is perceived socially in the rest of the country and in educational contexts, there's drift. And some of that drift ends up meaning a total reorganization of the mental system of vowels and shit for younger speakers. But New York has all those external forces, and wave after wave of migration. So when you've lived here long enough, it's absolutely wild to see the people you think of as newcomers criticize newcomers. I've seen people claim West Harlem or Inwood were always Dominican, and complain about new people. But West Harlem was Black before Dominican, and Jewish before Black, and we're not even getting into like Dutch. There's a reason it's Amsterdam Avenue in Harlem, or Lenape. And Inwood still has an admittedly strangely large number of Irish pubs for an always Dominican neighborhood. So the city's always been in flux. Accents are constantly changing across generations, and cities, especially New York, are always getting new and interesting mixes of people. So Tyreek, your accent is a New York accent, even though you don't differentiate as much between pen and pen.
Real accents.
And you say ah instead of I or I in words like iPad.
Is it the iPad?
And you don't say new.
Young New Yorkers.
And you pronounce a lot of your R's after vowels.
And now I'm bringing it here.
And you don't tense your a vowel in words like sad.
It makes me sad.
And your pronunciation of where sounds like it's got the a vowel in it and not the e vowel. And how you say Brooklyn is what older Brooklynites I know might consider somewhere between foreign and a hate crime. None of this is a criticism, although I am trying to be funny. All of that is fine, and undoubtedly how your speech community in New York speaks. And there really isn't a right and wrong here. But that also means what you're hearing and criticizing is a New York accent. That's just the way it's going. But also don't worry, the classic accent isn't completely dying out anytime soon. It's just speakers are a smaller proportion of who you're going to interact with in the first place. Because it has what's called covert prestige, there's always going to be a percentage in being able to signal local orientation. So whether you say New York and root for the Mets, which is a hard path to walk, admittedly, or New York and root for the Yankees, it's all part of the flavor of the city anyway. Somebody's got to buy those rainbow bagels and put ketchup on their hot dogs, or the city's economy would take a hit. But maybe let's cool it with all the worry about the kids these days. If you like what I'm doing with the channel, you can support it on YouTube with super thanks or over on Patreon at patreon.com/languagejones. Please leave a comment. They are great for the algorithm, and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, happy learning.